Hey, it's Ross from rosslukeman.com. Today I want to talk to you about how to measure propane tank levels in your van or RV with the Cerbo GX. Now, the Cerbo GX does have native tank monitoring. It'll measure up to 4 resistive tank senders. So this would be a resistive tank sender. It's got a little floater, and as the floater moves, the resistance that gets sent back through these wires to the Cerbo GX changes. And just to cover this base, let's go ahead and plug this in. I've already got it set up as our freshwater tank there. And so you can see the Cerbo will read as the floater moves. You can see the tank reading goes up. There's a little bit of a lag, but it does update in real time. If we hold it there, it should go to 100%. Okay, so that is a resistive tank sender. This can be used for fresh water, gray water, black water. It can even be used for fuel such as diesel or gasoline. But the propane is a different story. We can't put a tank sender in there for a couple of reasons. So first off, this is from a tank exchange, and when that's empty, we're going to give it back and get another tank. So we don't want to permanently build anything into the tank, and then it's also under high pressure, so you don't want to cut holes and insert senders that are going to add the potential for leaks. So we have to come at the propane tanks with a different strategy. And what I want to introduce is a sensor from Safiery. It's an Australian company that is going to make sonar-based or ultrasonic sensors. So it's going to send like a sound wave, or like you have an ultrasound when you have a pregnant woman, and they use ultrasound to detect the baby in there. With this, you're going to use ultrasound to detect the level of the propane, because under high pressure it is a liquid in there. And so it's sitting at some level in the tank, and what we're going to do, let me pull this sensor off. So with this sensor, it's got a rare earth magnet underneath there, and when you put it on there, we're going to add some gel, which I'll show you in just a second. It's going to basically take a voltage reading between 0 and 5 volts. And this will do tanks all the way up to 32 inches tall. It has to be a vertical tank like this, so it can't be a horizontal tank mounted underneath your vehicle. It needs to be vertical, but it'll do up to 32 inches, and it's going to send a reading between 0 and 5 volts back to the Cerbo GX. Now, as I mentioned, let me go ahead and put this back. As I mentioned, the Cerbo GX has resistive tank sender inputs. So it's going to measure the resistance in ohms of something like that tank sender I showed you for your water tanks, fuel tanks, etc. But it does not measure voltage-based sensors like the Safiery sensor, and so we need to add the GX Tank 140. So the GX Tank 140 will do voltage-based sensors or current-based sensors. So between this and this, we're able to do resistive, voltage, or current-based sensors. So basically any kind of sensor that you want to monitor and you want it to show up on the screen, you can do it with the GX Tank 140 in addition to the Cerbo GX. And this is just going to plug in to the top here. It's got a little USB cord, and it's going to import that data to the Cerbo GX. And we can see on the screen here, I've got both tanks there. If I click on the fuel icon, this is going to be our propane tank, and that's sitting at 17%. So this particular tank is almost empty, and I've got a full tank sitting off to the side here. And what we're going to do is put the full tank up there, because we have to start with a full tank in order to calibrate our sensor. And I'll show you what I mean in just a second. But that is pretty much all you need. You need the GX Tank 140. It's currently about 100 bucks. And you need the Safiery Ultrasonic LPG sensor. LPG stands for liquid petroleum gas, another name for propane. And that is a little bit pricey. It was about $160 shipped here to the US. It's made in Queensland, Australia. And those two together, it was about 260 bucks to be able to monitor the tank. But what I like is I don't have to buy an entire other system for the propane. I really love the Cerbo GX touchscreen. This is a GX Touch 50. I love being able to see everything on one screen. It's going to declutter your control panel. And I didn't want a separate thing for propane where you're kind of guessing or trying to pull the tank out and weigh it. It's just kind of clunky. So if you can invest and bring in this ultrasonic sensor, you can get everything to show up on the Cerbo GX screen. And with this current setup, we can do up to 8 different tanks. So that's pretty much going to cover any van or RV and any type of sensor that you may have. And I will mention Safiery does make a whole line of voltage-based sensors for water tanks, and some of them are ultrasonic like this, and they're just going to stick to the bottom of your tank. So if you want to do all voltage-based ultrasonic sensors like this is very accurate. You can get the GX Tank 140 and measure all your tanks with this type of sensor. So that's my intro. At this point, let's go ahead and swap out this tank, and I will show you how to attach the sensor and also how to set up the calibration so you can get very, very accurate readings. You can see we're reading right now at 17%, and I weighed these tanks, and I can tell you that that is accurate within 1 degree or 1% of what's actually left in that tank. So they're very accurate sensors. Now, before we swap out the tank, if you're interested in info on your overall power system for your van or RV, I have a resource that you may be interested in called the Ultimate Van Power Cheat Sheet. It's got a discussion of the 3 major charging sources, which are solar, shore, and alternator power. And it's going to discuss how they all have strengths, but they also have weaknesses. But when you bring them together in a holistic power strategy, it's going to make sure you have a good charge source out on the road. And there's also a section on different battery chemistries and the strengths and weaknesses of those, and that's going to help you narrow in on which battery type is going to be right for your situation. And then lastly, there is a really cool diagram that's essentially going to show your entire power system on one page, and it's going to show your 3 charging sources at the top and how that power makes its way through to charge your batteries and come out at your end devices such as your microwave or your phone charger. What are the links between, say, your solar panel and that microwave? So it's a really neat diagram that I think you'll find useful. To get your own copy of the Ultimate Van Power Cheat Sheet, all you have to do is click that link below or go to rosslukeman.com/vanpower. So with that, let's go ahead and swap out our tank, and I'll show you how to set up the sensor. All right, I've got our sensor here. So let me just show you the top. It's got the rare earth magnet. This is the ultrasonic sensor there in the middle. And then on the back, it's got a little blue LED that says that the power is on. And when it detects LPG, when you stick it to the tank, this will flash to show that it's detecting the propane fuel in there. But yeah, just a simple sensor. And it has a chip in there that converts the ultrasonic readings to a voltage between 0 and 5 volts depending on the height of the tank and the height of the liquid in there. So it's going to send that voltage back to the GX Tank 140. So I need to share one detail when sticking it to the tank. You need to add a gel, a couplant it's called, that is going to eliminate any air pockets between the sensor and the top of the fuel. So it needs to be solid, either liquid or steel, all the way until the liquid stops so it can get that accurate reading. And I talked to Bruce over at Safiery. He is the founder and the designer of a lot of their technology, and he recommended KY jelly as the couplant. So, product of many uses. You're just going to put a little dab on there, and you should be generous with it to make sure we eliminate any air pockets. And then we're just going to go under the tank, and I like to gently, it's got a really strong magnet, so if you just let it go, it can slam on there and kind of knock out a lot of the gel. So I like to gently let it grab on there. But yeah, so that is the sensor side. Now let's go ahead and zoom in on the GX Tank 140. You can see I've plugged in the sensor here on channel 4. You can see it's got positive and negative power in. This is bringing in external power. Now this is supposed to operate off of just the USB. So the USB plugs into the Cerbo GX and it's going to bring power through this cord, and it's actually going to power up these last two channels. You can see it says built-in 24-volt power. So on this red wire, that's sending out 24 volts to the sensor, and the black is going to be our negative or ground. You can see it says GND there. And the yellow, it's labeled in. So the yellow is the sensor data coming back, and that is reporting between 0 and 5 volts to our Tank 140, and that is going to be translated to the Cerbo GX through the USB connection here. So we can send, with this sensor, we can send 10 to 30 volts over via the red wire. So you can see 24 volts falls in that range. Now I've also plugged in our 12 volt supply here. This is connected to the battery positive and negative. So this is bringing in 12 volts. And that is powering up these first two channels. So you kind of have channels 3 and 4 are 24 volts, and channels 1 and 2 are whatever voltage is coming in here. So that 12 volt just goes through. So we can run this particular ultrasonic sensor on 24 volts here at the end, or we can pick up the 12 volts on channel 1 and 2. It doesn't matter, it works on either one. Now there is kind of a caveat with that. The 24 volts powers up the sensor, but when I pull the power from here, for some reason the reporting back on the screen dies, basically. All right, so just real quick, you can see that it's at 100%, and channel 4 should run autonomously off of the USB connection here, but when I pull the 12 volt battery power, you'll watch this slowly deplete. And if you look inside at the sensor, you'll see that the sensor voltage is going down. So this is not running properly just off of the USB. It has to have the battery power. So if I plug this back in, it will recover very quickly. So the sensor comes back 100%. And that's a correct reading. It's calibrated. It is a full propane tank. I just want to share one more detail on my connections here. So these are ferrules, and I've got 18 gauge ferrules over here with a 12 millimeter pin. These are from American Electronics, ordered from DigiKey, and they're kind of specialty. And then this is from a kit I ordered on Amazon. This is a 22 gauge, I believe, with an 8 millimeter pin. So those are going to have ridges. You're going to use a ferrule crimper. So this is my ferrule crimper, and when you crimp it, it's going to grip the wire, and it's going to have little ridges in there that when you insert it, it's going to make sure that doesn't pull back. So it locks in there. It makes sure that you get all the strands into the connection, and it's going to make sure that it doesn't shake out. So you definitely want to use ferrules here. There are instructions to use the bare wire in the instruction manual, but I wouldn't recommend it. I'd get the ferrules to make sure that that doesn't shake out when you're going down the road. All right, now that we've got the hardware set up, we've identified how our sensor plugs into the GX Tank 140, we need to go into the Cerbo GX screen here and set up the sensor and also calibrate it for accurate readings. Now I just want to remind you, we plugged into channel 4 here on the GX Tank 140. So we're going to find channel 4 on here, and channels 1, 2, and 3 we're going to go ahead and turn off on the screen. And once we go into channel 4, we'll calibrate the voltage and make sure we get accurate readings. So let's go ahead and zoom in. All right, so when we go into the Cerbo GX, this is the main screen that's going to show your electrical, like your solar, your shore power, your batteries. But what we need to do is go to the tanks overview screen. You can see these 4 tanks on the left. Those are the readings coming in from the GX Tank 140. And then this is the water tank that is set up, that's natively coming in for the Cerbo GX. what we need to do is we need to turn off channels 1, 2, and 3 from the GX140 and just have the propane tank and the one water tank. And if we hit the fuel icon, it's just going to show the fuel tanks. Hit the water icon, just the water tanks, or hit the tanks overview, it's going to show everything. So let's turn off these first 3 channels. What we're going to do is we're going to hit menu, and you can see the tanks are listed. So this is kind of a default here, fuel tank 30. These I've named LPG. We need to turn these off. Propane is the one that we're going to leave on. Excuse me. Propane 100%, that's the one we're going to leave on. And then what we need to do is go down to settings. And we're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom where it says I/O. And these are the analog and digital inputs. The GX Tank 140 is going to come in as analog because it's voltage based. And you can see the native inputs, temperature, and tank levels for the Cerbo GX. You can see I have tank level 1 turned on for our water tank, and then everything else is off. What we need to do, you can see the GX Tank 140 inputs are coming in here. We're on input number 4. So we're going to turn off 1, 2, and 3. So we'll just toggle this. And it does say the devices will remain on the device list until you hit the button that says remove devices. I'll show you that in just a second. So those are now turned off, and we can go back all the way back. This is our device list, you can see there at the top. And if we scroll down, there's a new button here, remove disconnected devices. So we'll press to remove, and now if we go back out, those first 3 tanks are gone. So now let me show you how I calibrated that propane tank there on the left. So we'll go into propane. And if we click on device, it's going to show we're on input 4, connected, yes, GX Tank 140. And then this is where you can do a custom name. So I called it propane. You could put LPG or whatever you want right there. And the rest of this we don't really need to worry about. But let's go back to setup. So we were in device. Now let's go to setup. So the sensor type is voltage. It could be a current-based sensor. And this is a voltage-based sensor. So we're going to leave it as voltage. And then these numbers are important. The sensor value when full is very important. And so we are going to take a reading. We have a full tank on there now with the sensor connected, and we can scroll down and you can see sensor value is currently 1.9 volts. So this is why it's important to have a brand new full tank, because when you take this reading, that is going to let you know what to set these settings at to tell it when it's full. So hopefully that made sense, but it's 0 volts when the tank is fully empty, and we can put 1.9 volts when it's full. I put 1.8 to make sure that it displays 100%. If we put 1.9 and we go back out to the tank, it'll show 99%. So if you really want it to show 100%, we can play with the settings just a little bit and make that setting 1.8. So we're going to go just shy of this, what the sensor's reading on a full tank. So the sensor's reading 1.9 volts at a full tank. When it hits 1.8, we're going to call it 100% full. And then as far as the fluid type, we can call it water, wastewater, fuel. So I've selected fuel. Volume unit is US gallons. And then at the top, it's going to ask capacity. So I've selected gallons, and a 15-pound propane tank is just shy of 4 gallons. So I've selected 4 gallons there. Averaging time, this is about talking about when the fuel sloshes around in the tank going down the road. You don't want the reading to update every second. So this defaults to 10 seconds. It's going to average out every 10 seconds. And I would recommend leaving it at that. And then you have some alarms. If you want to set off an alarm when the propane gets low, you can do that as well. Maybe a little bit overkill, because you can just look at the You can just look at the screen, and when it gets down to maybe 10%, you'll know that it's low. You don't necessarily need the Cerbo GX to beep at you. So those are most of the settings, and that is how you would set up the ultrasonic sensor to measure your propane tank. So that's how you're going to get your propane tank to show up next to all your other tanks on the Cerbo GX device using the ultrasonic sensor from Safiery and the GX Tank 140 from Victron. So I hope that was helpful. If you want even more help with your electrical system, you got to grab a copy of the Ultimate Van Power Cheat Sheet. Just click that link below or go to rosslupman.com/vanpower. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.